So, colleagues, thank you for your patience. And as I said, we directly move on to our next lunch break session, which is devoted to gender and the diverse needs of mine-affected communities, lessons learned, and the way ahead. As I just said, gender is certainly one of the pressing topics and also one of the cross-cutting priorities of the German presidency of the APMBC this year. And I'm very glad of all of you joining us today for this second session, which will be moderated by Renata Dall'Acqua from UNIDIR. But just to set the scene, allow me to address some small short words. So since the adoption of the Oslo Action Plan, APMBC states parties committed to take practical steps to integrate gender perspectives and take the diverse needs and experiences of people in affected communities into all aspects of mine action and programming. And also the fourth review conference has seen a major decision in the establishment of the gender focal points, which was a very great innovation in the institutional mandate and the organizational practice, and has also been replicated in other disarmament fora since then. So in this regard, really APMBC states have taken a leading role in enacting change and promoting gender equality through policy decisions. And as for the environment topic, also with regard to gender, we are approaching the final year of the Oslo Action Plan, and it is time to take stock also in this regard and to consider possible commitments and enabling actions to support gender mainstreaming in the next action plan to come, which has to be adopted in at the fifth review conference. And the German presidency has started this conversation on the 2nd of June, when we, together with the Geneva International Center of Humanitarian Demining, the United Nations Institute for Disarmament, and ourselves, we invited to an interactive discussion marking the launch of a new report by UNIDIR on best practices for gender equality in conventional arms control. Exactly this is what we want to do today, to concentrate when it comes to the findings of this report to the Ottawa Convention, to our concrete practices in the field of mine action. I don't want to be too long, but I think it is clear that without a gender balanced approach, humanitarian mine action will certainly not be able to reach those we want to protect. We need female deminers, female community liaison officers. They are key components. They are key to implement the convention and ensure that everyone benefits from a mine-free world. So this is clearly another task which is before us as we work towards the review conference next year. And so I encourage all of you, not only in this lunch break session, but also in the months to come, to engage in this issue, and for today to share your questions and perspectives and on how to advance gender equality in the APMBC. And with this, I would like to wish you all a fruitful discussion, and I hand over to Renata, who will lead us through this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and hello and good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to join you as the moderator for this plenary session on gender and the diverse needs of mine-affected community, lessons learned and way ahead. I'm Renata Dall'Acqua. I work at UNIDIR, where I lead the Gender and Disarmament Program. And the main objectives of our work are to foster gender equality and to promote the effective integration of gender perspectives across arms control and disarmament fora. Well, it may come as no surprise to you that the topic that we're discussing today is very much a priority for us at UNIDIR. Mine action takes place in highly gendered contexts where there are differences and inequalities between the different groups of society. And these dynamics, they affect exposure to risk, access to knowledge, information, and medical services, as well as long-term reintegration. I know colleagues working here, working on the field, they know firsthand the importance of taking gender considerations and diversity considerations seriously. So integrating gender perspectives help to get a more complete picture of the problem, improving data collection, improving what we know about contaminated areas, including different groups, needs and priorities in planning and implementation. A gender analysis also leads to a better understanding of the impacts of landmines and how to provide better assistance to survivors. It also helps us to advance multilateral agendas, for instance, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or Agenda 2030, or the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. And it can also help to unlock professional opportunities for women and other underserved groups in the community. This last point is important because social inequalities impact the ability to get employed, the ability to influence, and the ability to take part in decision-making. It is estimated that women are 1/4 of field operations and national staff in mine action. In headquarters and offices, these numbers change a bit. Gender imbalance is less pronounced in headquarters and office. But still, we have a long way to go to ensure that women have equal opportunity in the field, in the office, and in conference rooms. UNIDIR recently launched this report that the ambassador mentioned, analyzing best practices to promote women's participation in arms control and disarmament. It showcases 5 best practices that are having a positive impact in the field. And I encourage you to download our report. We actually put some flyers just outside the room, and it's available on UNIDIR's website. You will see in this report, it's based on survey results. One of the respondents actually mentioned the Oslo Action Plan as a driver to improving gender-related policies in their organization. And I think this is a good example because sometimes we may think that what we discuss here in Geneva, it's hard to know what the impact is on the ground. But these policy frameworks that you as diplomats adopt and discuss, they very much have an impact on the ground. The Oslo Action Plan specifically is a real landmark when it comes to gender and diversity mainstreaming. And, you know, we need to make sure that the next action plan is up to the level or even better than the Oslo Action Plan. So I think looking ahead, it's about time that we start to consider what kind of commitments should be included in the next action plan in order to sustain gains and advance gender and diversity in mine action. In this regard, I'm pleased to share that UNIDIR is actually doing some research on this, and I've been emailing some of you in the room because we also want to get your views on that. So if you have ideas you'd like to share for the next APNVC action plan, feel free to get in touch with us because we very much want to hear from this community what would be useful for the next action plan. This is important because gender gains, they are not irreversible. Here in Geneva, you know, there's the International Gender Champions, for instance, they reported a decrease in compliance in the panel parity pledge. This is just one indicator that in conference rooms, we are actually backsliding in terms of single-sex panels, most of the times all male panels. And this is just one example from, you know, Geneva. But if we look around in the field, there are countries where women's rights are under attack. And we need to take this into account as well. In different parts of the world, there are also, you know, challenges against the international human rights, and we need to address these issues. I think Mine Action is a way also of dealing with that. I'm very pleased to be joined by two very knowledgeable experts here today. Mr. Prum, who is the Executive Director of the ASEAN Regional Mine Action Center, and Ms. Feldworth, Policy Manager for Europe at the Halo Trust. I'd like to give them the floor now. Mr. Prum, can you share with us your insights on the issues of gender and diverse needs in the work of ARMAC?
Once again, good afternoon to all the delegates, and thank you, Mr. Ambassador and President, Ms. Renata, and colleague from Halo Trust. You mentioned that I'm an expert on gender. Basically, I'm no expert on gender, but our organization as a regional entity very actively involved with the work in relation to mine action and on this cross-cutting issue. So for your background, the ASEAN Regional Mine Action Center was established in 2012 by the declaration of the ASEAN leader during the ASEAN Summit in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, back in 2012. And it became operational in 2017. We were given a functions and mandate as to promote the awareness of the danger of ERW among the affected communities, facilitate appropriate medical and rehabilitation assistance for victims of ERW, and to assist interested member state in research and knowledge sharing on the effects of ERW and the effort to collectively address this issue. So the establishment of this regional center signify our has some of the significance for our region. It's contribute in the effort to implement the ASEAN Political Security Blueprint 2025, which envision our region to be a united, inclusive, and resilient community by 2025, to promote the cooperation on socio-economic development issue by developing partnership, facilitating knowledge sharing, and supporting cooperation and initiative in the region, to promote ASEAN member state active participation in peacekeeping and post-conflict peace building effort in accordance with capacity of respective member state, and to enhance cooperation within the ASEAN and its partner. As you can see, we are only 6 years old kids on the block, but as we are limited to this main three mandates, so not to overlap with the activity of the national authority and center of the member state in our region. On the subject of gender equality and inclusion, we in ASEAN are guided by the ASEAN Gender Mainstreaming Strategic Framework 21-25 that was drafted by the ASEAN Committee on Women and ASEAN Commission on Promotion and Protection of Rights of Women and Children. Addressing gender equality is a priority for all ASEAN member states and for ASEAN. Since its inception, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations has consistently articulated a commitment to gender equality and inclusion to the empowerment of women and girls across all the sectors in which we work. ASEAN has a well-developed institutional structure on gender and inclusion that has evolved over time in response to policy development and trends in the region and globally. Currently, the responsibility for gender and inclusion rests predominantly with ASEAN social cultural community, or known as ASCC. The ASCC blueprint outlined a vision for ASEAN as an inclusive community that promotes high qualities of life, equitable access to opportunity for all, and promote and protect human rights of women, children, youth, elder, person with disability, migrant worker, vulnerable, and marginalized group. So it goes on to outline a range of objectives relating to women and vulnerable group, including a commitment to develop regional strategy and enhance institutional capacity for gender mainstreaming in ASEAN policy program and the budget across all the pillar and the sector. For information, in ASEAN, we have three main pillar: political security, social economic community, and the social cultural community. For our regional center, we fall under the political security community. The ASEAN Gender Mainstreaming Strategic Framework 21-25 is rooted in the Declaration on the Gender Responsive Implementation of ASEAN Community Vision 2025, and can be clustered as follows. One is enhanced member state capacity in collecting, managing, analyzing, and disseminating disaggregated data on national and subnational level. Undertaking gender analysis to inform the design and implementation of policy, plan, and program, monitoring and evaluating the impact of policy, plan, program on men and women, including assessing the contribution of women in the economy and the economic costs of gender-based violence against women and girls. Promoting women meaningful participation in decision-making body and engaging with women group and organization, while also engaging men and boys as ally for gender equality. Supporting the development and implementation of gender mainstreaming initiative across all ASEAN sectoral body. For us at the ASEAN Regional Mine Action Center, an entity that is associated with ASEAN under Chapter 5 Annex 2 of the ASEAN Charter, we are actively promoting gender equality and inclusion in line with the policy guideline and framework in place. We strive to share experiences and best practices on the subject matter. Recently, we at RMAC engaged the service of GICHD to conduct a study on gender equality and inclusion in EORR, explosive ordnance risk reduction, among the affected member states. So this study, we look at the country like Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, and Myanmar. This study was funded by the government of Italy. The study aimed to understand and highlight practices of collection, analysis, and reporting of data on gender and diversity in the mine action sector in the landmine ERW affected ASEAN state, and how this data can demonstrate the sector contribution toward broader agenda on gender equality and inclusion. In a nutshell, I think you can go through our website for the detail. If you can go on the slide number 2. I have only 2 slides from my first participation in Intersessional here. So in a nutshell, women empowerment is the key word, and it was what we have identified in the study and in the case study from Lao PDR. Through employing women and men in Lao, mine action organization contribute to gender equality and the empowerment of women in a number of ways. For example, women working in the sector report being more confident personally within their household, within their community, as well as being more respected and able to take decision. Women also benefit economically from mine action on a broadly similar scale to men when in a context where formal employment opportunity for women are fewer. Single income household led by women experience considerably greater economic benefits than other groups. Mine action organization, of course, should therefore, if possible, prioritize women, providing the single incomes for their family. And if they wish to maximize impacts on women economic empowerment. In addition, the employment of women in the sector has positively changed the attitude towards women at work within the landmine ERW affected community in our region. And this another case in point at our regional center. To be honest, we are outnumbered by women by 7 to 3. So only myself in the office with one driver and another program coordinator. So the rest are women in our office. So basically, you can see how women in our region are getting more capable and take up this job responsibility and the mine action, both at the managerial supervisory level and in the field. Of course, it's not perfect if we go across the region, but here a specific example on particular on some affected member state. With this, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prum. This was very interesting to know about ARMAC and its strategy and its actions. I took note of, collecting data, employing gender analysis, M&E efforts, ensuring women's meaningful participation and, gender mainstreaming. I think you have all the frameworks in place, and I'm glad to see that you already have some results to share. Now I would like to turn to my colleague from Halo, Kim. Could you share a little bit about the impact of taking into consideration gender and diversity needs in your work, Kim?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador Goebel. Thank you to the German presidency and UNIDIR for this very important discussion we're having here today. Firstly, I will focus on the operational side, how Halo includes a gender and diversity sensible approach to ensure that women and vulnerable groups are involved in our humanitarian response, that ensures that their voices and perspectives are heard and inform our design of projects. And what different challenges Halo programs in 30 countries and territories face when it comes to employing women and how we address some of them. Secondly, I'll also briefly touch on the importance of the Gender and Diversity Working Group, of which Halo is a member. So on the operational side, Halo's approach to gender mainstreaming across our programs ensures that the needs of beneficiaries and staff are considered at all stages of the project cycle. So that's the design, the planning, the implementation, and the evaluation to strengthen mine action activities to benefit women, girls, boys, and men equally. Halo integrates a gender perspective in the design and delivery of all of our activities. So that's the mining, survey, community liaison, risk education, data collection, task prioritization, and attendance of handover ceremonies of cleared land. 97% of the workforce of Halo's workforce come from the communities we serve, and recognizing the critical role women play in that, Halo is committed to achieving a gender balance in our workforce by addressing the unique barriers which many face and which are in place, which make it difficult for women to join or remain in employment. But before exploring these barriers, I'd like to highlight some great examples from 2 different programs that demonstrate the short and medium-term impact of increasing female staff numbers. The first one is Cambodia. So in Cambodia, of the total national staff, 41% are women, and that's across D-minus and senior management staff. The program's impressive ratio serves as evidence of Cambodia's advocacy, efforts, and experience in gender mainstreaming within the sector. And having more women in the program serves as a tool to break with gender stereotypes, both within the sector, but also within the local communities where we work. Increasing the number of women in management and senior positions gives the program more positive female role models to which other women can relate and they can aspire to achieve similar roles and it serves as a tool to break down cultural stereotypes. Having mixed gender clearance survey and EOD teams ensures that the needs of the local communities are addressed. Moving on to the second program I would like to highlight, and that's our program in Syria. 39% of Halo Syria staff are female. And one significant milestone that the team has achieved there is that we have 2 female staff members working as EOD technicians. And by including women in these technical field roles, our staff have become role models for their colleagues and also their communities. In Syria, we also have a woman leading an explosive ordnance risk education team, and it exemplifies exceptional leadership and capabilities and expertise, which again has allowed us to address local gender sensitivities more effectively. It's noteworthy that those 2 programs vastly differ, but the list of positive examples we have where Halo works and the positive impact women working in these environments make goes on. Colombia, Sri Lanka, and many other countries there are really to mention. However, it's also noteworthy that there are programs where challenges remain. So coming back to the barriers to employment I mentioned earlier, when analyzing our attrition of female staff, Halo found that the most common reason mothers and mothers-to-be leave Halo is due to family commitments and the lack of childcare provisions. And through a baseline survey, Halo confirmed that the burden of childcare rests predominantly with women, and that childcare and related expenses are one of the major obstacles for women. So in Zimbabwe, for example, the program found that 90% of women Halo employs in Zimbabwe are the primary earner in the household. And similarly in Somaliland, almost 90% of female staff are the family's main breadwinner, but they spend 60% of their income on childcare related expenses. So based on these findings, almost 2 years ago, Halo therefore started a pilot project running in 10 of our programs. And it included the distribution of childcare stipends, baby boxes, and school kits. And until the end of March this year, more than 450 women have benefited from childcare stipends. 1,000 baby boxes and 890 school kits were distributed. And though our end-line study is being completed at the moment, from the testimonies we've heard from women receiving the support, we have already seen a significant positive impact. The means to obtain childcare services not only allows women to remain and re-enter the workforce, but also that the potential to increase the quality of care and education for children in the areas where we operate. The final results of this end-line study will inform our future programming as well. And we're hoping to share that more widely with this community in terms of best practice. Secondly, I said I wanted to briefly touch on the work the Gender and Diversity Working Group has been doing. We're now a group comprised of 13 civil society organizations. The core purpose of the group is to support the mainstreaming of gender and diversity provisions within the APMBC and the CCM. And since the 4th review conference, the group has shared relevant research, highlighted the need for disaggregated data, and supported the gender focal points Ambassador Goebel referred to earlier as well. It's also significantly grown in its membership, which is great to see, and continues to work with all stakeholders to support the mainstreaming of gender and diversity provisions within this convention, especially coming up to the new action plan, which we've mentioned many times today. It's really important that we all join forces to improve the provisions within that. With that, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much. These are very interesting findings, and yeah, be interesting to see what the final study says about the importance of the child care stipend and the education kits. That's very interesting. So now I'd like to open the floor. I think we have a couple of minutes for interventions, and I would really encourage kind of comments or questions or very short interventions, because we only have, a couple of minutes. So if you want, could you, yes, I see in the back we have ICBL and then GICHD. Please.
Thanks, Renata. The 13 organizations making up the Gender and Diversity Working Group appreciate the importance the German presidency has put on gender and other factors of diversity this year. And we really thank the speakers for their interesting contributions to this discussion. Okay. A full copy of the statement will be sent to the ISU. With 1 year to go before the next review conference, it's time to begin taking stock of the progress we have made under the Oslo Action Plan. And the weather is changing, and that should have happened during the environmental statement. Since 2019, the conversation about gender and diversity more generally under the APMBC has resulted in improvements to the inclusivity of our work. There's more data than ever showing that a gender and diversity approach to mine action is key for successful implementation of this convention. There's still work to be done, but this progress really should be recognized. But we know all too well that not everybody is comfortable with this progress. Some may feel that we've asked for too much. Maybe things are getting lost in translation, or maybe there's confusion about why gender and diversity is such a focus for this convention and for us as operators and advocates. So let us be clear, we cannot achieve our goal of a world without landmines where survivors have their rights and needs met without including everyone. Long story short, we do not have the luxury of inequality. The focus on gender and diversity has been a long time coming. It's not some fad or recent epiphany. It's rooted in years of experience in the field. So now it's time to start looking at how we can ensure that the progress made under the Oslo Action Plan is not a glitch. Today's an excellent start, but we need to build on this work at the next review conference. It is actually just around the corner if we think about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see GICHD in Ireland, so.
Thank you very much for the floor. I had prepared a statement, but I understand that it's better to have short comments or questions. So the statement will be submitted in writing. And of course, I align as GICHD with the statement of the Gender and Diversity Working Group. We have talked about a lot of the progress that has been made. I was wondering if maybe the panelists would like to point to some of the challenges that we still, that still lay ahead and that we will have to consider going forward in the 5th review conference and the new action plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll collect some questions and then I'll give the floor to final remarks. Ireland and then Mexico.
Thank you for giving me the floor. As this is my delegation's first time taking the floor, allow me to congratulate Germany on its assumption of the presidency, and allow me to thank the chairs of the coordinating committee and the ISU for all their efforts in carrying forward the decisions of the Oslo Action Plan and the decisions of the 20th meeting of states parties. I also want to thank the panelists for their interesting and informative presentations, and to the president for convening these highly relevant cross-cutting thematic meetings. Ireland welcomes this session, which offers an important opportunity to reflect on the lessons learned and areas for improvement with regard to implementation of the Oslo Action Plan commitments on gender and diverse needs of mine-affected communities. We should celebrate the progress made in terms of increased attention paid by states parties towards integrating gender and diversity perspectives in mine action programs while keeping an eye on the further work needed. Gender equality is a priority in Ireland's support to mine action. As a donor, the integration of gender is part of our funding assessment criteria and a regular part of our discussions with our mine action partners. Ireland funds mine action programs in 8 countries through HALO, MAG, and local partners. These programs have a strong focus on gender equality, which recognize the impact of explosive ordnance contamination affects women, girls, boys, and men differently. There is a commitment to gender assessment and analysis to understand each context, as well as mixed gender teams in risk education, land surveys, and demining. The inclusion of women in technical field roles can also contribute to shifting gender norms. Female risk education staff are also aware of local gender sensitivities and can conduct female-only sessions as is often required. The participation of women also helps to facilitate connecting with schools and households to promote awareness of explosive hazards. Further, the involvement of women is essential to ensure their needs are reflected in post-clearance development, such as the installation of water points, education, or health facilities. It is essential that our commitments to gender equality in mine action consider the needs of women in the post-clearance phase, as there are clear risks where female deminers lose their employment or where land is used in a way that does not benefit or even harms women. Measuring our progress is key to identifying areas for improvement. The progress report of the 20th meeting of states parties provides some useful indications on advances and shortcomings regarding Oslo Action Plan gender and diversity commitments. And I'll maybe skip highlighting those numbers for the sake of time. States parties should take full advantage of existing resources developed by experts in civil society and international organizations, such as by the GICHD, ICRC, ICBL, UNMAS, and UNIDIR, among others, for assistance in effectively mainstreaming gender and diversity perspectives in all aspects of humanitarian mine action programming. Finally, with the 5th review conference fast approaching, it is useful to begin considering possible commitments and actions to further support gender and diversity mainstreaming. And Ireland looks forward to developing these ideas with all partners, including the Gender and Diversity Working Group in the months to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Ireland. Now to Mexico, please.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, we would like to thank Germany for organizing this timely thematic session. And while progress has been made in integrating a gender perspective, we acknowledge that significant gaps remain, but in fulfilling this commitment and in reported on relating activities. The working papers presented by Finland and the Netherlands at the last review conferences of this convention and the Convention of Cluster Munitions, the updated UN gender guidelines for mine action programs, and a wealth of training and resources provided by GICHD, as well as UNIDIR's research, all point a clear way forward. However, and it has been acknowledged, we believe that the practical application of gender and diversity considerations require tailored approaches to meet the specific challenges of each context. In this regard, we welcome and emphasize the importance of supporting strengthening efforts to identify and share challenges and good practices in gender and diversity mainstreaming from the perspective of affected states, donors, mine action operators, as survivors. And in this case, we agree with the GICHD question on what are the challenges that have been post-scene. We also consider it important to raise awareness of the intersection between gender and factors of vulnerability and inclusion, for example, age, religion, ethnicity, language, disability, among others. It is also important for Mexico to examine the extent to which gender and diversity considerations are included in studies of risk education, victim assistance, and international cooperation and assistance. In this regard, Mexico, as part of the CCM Victim Assistance Committee, undertook the revision of the Guide on a Comprehensive Approach to Victim Assistance, which was developed by states and for states. The aim of the revision was to go beyond a mere updates to being guidelines with the Oslo and the Lausanne Action Plan, but sought to identify novel elements of these plans that require technical developments and exemplification with case studies. And in this exercise, we took on the gender revision and token of these plans to mainstream this and include information that should be analyzed, should be disaggregated by gender, age, disability status, and consider this information should be stored in a database and made available to all relevant stakeholders. Another important question has been, what can mine action organizations do to integrate a gender perspective in their activities and to promote women's full, equal, and meaningful participation? To do this, we consider it important to understand the current obstacles, and we therefore welcome UNIDIR's recent publication, The Best Practices for Gender Equality in Conventional Arms Control, which highlighted other obstacles worth examining. And we very much thank Mr. Antalagua and her team for the presentation of this report. We acknowledge the importance of working with smart indicators, and we think that this is something we would also like to ask the panelists, how can we use these indicators in our practices for us also as diplomats? And in the context of the framework for victim assistance and reportings, we would also like to know what panelists think about best practices and data exchanges. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mexico. And I took note of the question, what are the main challenges and obstacles? One of them is time. We're running out of time today. I think I'll close the floor now. I know there is Canada and the EU. If you can submit your your statements, your points to the ISU or to UNIDIR. But I would now give the floor to our panelists to respond and make some final remarks. What I meant about the time, I really mean it. It would be very good if we could have, like more time and more resources to build common understandings of what are the objectives of gender and diversity mainstreaming and why are they important and relevant for Mine Action. I would really appreciate, perhaps that's something that we at UNIDIR can do as well, some smaller sessions, discussion sessions outside this very busy week, but with more time where people can reflect and share their ideas. I feel there is still a lot that we need to do to reach understandings and way to operationalize these understandings. But now, if I may, Kim, do you want to share your quick reaction to that?
Yes, I will. Very briefly, I think it is really important to recognize where we've come from since the Oslo Action Plan has been adopted. But I think the big challenge going forward is to make sure that the gender considerations are built on and strengthened in the next review conference when we adopt the next action plan, but also that we pay more attention to the diversity and intersectionality factors that might not be as strong in the last action plan and which need to be built on. And I think I mentioned in my intervention, and we won't have time to go into that now, but obviously there are programs where more challenges remain. So I think communication and dialogue are really key to take that forward. And I'll leave it here in the interest of time.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm no expert on gender, but basically based on our practice, I think the success that we have at our regional entity, I think a very clear guideline, as I shared earlier, policy, and I think in place, and also the implementation. I think that would take the strengthen and enhance institutional capacity in order to implement such policies and guidelines. Yeah.
Thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you very much to the presidency for organizing this session, and thank you all for participating. I think now we move on to the next session. Thank you.